Recently, DE adjusted most of the Sentinel guns to give them far higher stats than before. Given the sheer dominance of the Verglas and recent release of Verglas Prime, the question in focus here is, were those changes enough? I'm Nick Engineer, let's solve a practical problem. Most Sentinel guns come with their respective Sentinel. You can acquire any of the Artax, Burst Laser, Deconstructor, Death Machine Rifle, Laser Rifle, Boltron, Stinger, Sweeper, Verglas, and Voltlock from building their Sentinels. As a result, each of those Sentinels require 2 companion slots on claiming, one for the Sentinel and one for the weapon. The variant Sentinels, like Carrier Prime and Prisma Shade, also come with variant weapons. The remaining few, Cryotra, Hellstrom, Tazikor, and Volcax, are sold via Legs in Fortuna. Those do not have an associated Sentinel and must be constructed directly with open world resources from the Orb Valis and Plains of Eidolon. Each Sentinel weapon can fit onto any Sentinel or Moa, with the exception of the Helios-specific Deconstructor, a Sentinel Glaive. These many weapons are very far from equal. As with normal weaponry, a Sentinel weapon can be useful for killing enemies, afflicting enemies with status effects, or triggering a unique other effect. Up until recently, only about 2 weapons were worth talking about. The Verglas for its stats, perfectly equivalent to the Galaxian primary weapon, and Artax for a starter weapon with good cold output. DE addressed this by overhauling every non-Verglas Sentinel weapon. For some weapons like the Burst Laser, it is mostly a stat change. Burst Laser got nearly triple the damage, 5 times the status, an incredible 6 times the critical chance, alongside a more than tripled critical bonus. Other weapons saw an identity change instead, like Artax gaining immutable cold damage, Cryotra becoming cold mortars, and Tazikor becoming a chaining taser. Let's be real, if you ever come across a patch where stats of weapons are being increased this many times over, the original weapons sucked. Yet still, there remains the question of, is it enough? Part of the answer to this question is that the patch notes and actual in-game stats are, in some cases, completely different. These are not small differences. It may be the patch notes that are incorrect, it may be the in-game stats that are incorrect. Technically, it may even be both. This means that the Hellstrom is putting out significantly less status per second than the patch notes would suggest, while Artax, that beginner Sentinel weapon, has the highest status per second of any Sentinel weapon in the game, at least single target. Going by the in-game stats, there is a relatively clear distinction between Sentinel weapons with a focus on damage, and others, well, not. The Burst Laser and its variants, as well as the Stinger and Voltlock, have such terrible damage outputs, it's incredible to consider how bad they were pre-patch. In exchange, they also have some pretty terrible status application and no useful utility quirks. If that doesn't sound like an exchange to you, that just means you're paying attention. Even when it comes to the improved accuracy that many Sentinel weapons were given according to the patch notes, Sentinels firing the Burst Laser will actively choose to miss many shots as soon as a little bit of distance is gained, while beams like Verglas remain exactly on point. Suffice to say, some weapons are still objectively trash. The Death Machine Rifle has significantly better damage output, but finds itself lacking still. It has lower damage per second than Verglas of course, while also lacking any reasonable status output. The big problem with lacking in status is that if a Sentinel's gun can't kill stuff outright, it might as well at least set up the enemy to be killed or neutralized. With the normal gun having a 1% status chance and the Prime a 4% status chance, that just isn't happening. Laser Rifle has higher damage again and more status output, though this may be unintended as the fire rate is higher than the patch note suggested. I suspect part of the design issue is that many of these weapons are available pretty early into the game. You can construct Death Machine, for example, as soon as you reach the Void, or sooner if you look into a control module from a particular Cetus bounty. Even then, the Death Machine Rifle has DPS comparable to the Mark I Bratton, and also has the same accuracy issue I highlighted for the Burst Laser. So let's drill down to the good stuff. Which weapons bring either good damage, good status, good application, good utility, or a powerful combination of that? Starting with the Artax. It has perfect application within range, extremely high status chance and fire rate, and immutable cold. This means a portion of the base cold damage will not mix with mods, giving you a guaranteed source of cold procs. This is incredible if combined with Shivering Contagion for an area slowing effect in addition to rapidly applying your choice of status effects. A viral heat cold setup will be as simple as it gets, weakening health and armor while controlling enemies. Artax benefits hugely from the 60/60 status mods. The Heat version comes from high tier spy missions, Cold from mid tier spy missions, Toxin solely from Corrupted Vor in top tier Void missions, and Electric from either Hive missions or Barracuda. Couple this amount of status chance with fire rate and multi-shot to make it a punishing status applicator. Alternatively, load Artax up with damage and status and your companion with Contagious Bond, obtained from Sun in the Entrati family. Now you have a Sentinel that can kill weaker units and spread the damaging status to others in a good AoE. Viral Heat Cold is again good for this, as any heat procs applied via a spread will reset the duration of all heat procs in the AoE, keeping the damage up. If you can afford 75 platinum, the absolute king of Sentinel guns is available to you by purchasing Nautilus from the in-game market. This comes with the Orokin Catalyst, Orokin Reactor, and 2 companion inventory slots as part of the deal, making the actual purchase effectively only 23 platinum, assuming you would have purchased all the included items. This also skips the build time, material cost, and gathering the components from many Neptune Railjack missions. Nautilus comes with the Verglas weapon, a stat-for-stat replica of the Galaxian, an MR8 primary weapon. This thing is second only to the Artax for status output. Again, comes as a beam with innate cold and perfect accuracy, and has a much better fire rate than most other Sentinel guns to complement its average damage per hit. The Verglas can be modded nearly the same as Artax, though it lacks immutable cold. For a combination type with cold, you can go for corrosive cold for an armor sunderer, radiation cold for control, or gas cold for low area damage. Otherwise, viral heat remains king in most applications, and magnetic heat for handling Xmas units in particular. If you're happy to splash out on the prime variant, the damage climbs noticeably and the status output gets a mild improvement. Hellstrom as a damage dealer sucks. However, as a status applicator, it sees real use. Not only does it come with a base 30% status chance, higher than all but the Artax and Verglas, it also has a reliable AoE and burst fire. While the theoretical status per second per target isn't the highest, it can reliably afflict a target with a spread of different status effects, ideal for both direct use and for boosting condition overload. What's more, the AoE plays perfectly into the hands of tight grouping abilities like Nidus' Lava ability. Mod Hellstrom for massive status and fire rate with a choice selection of damage types. Skip the actual damage mods unless you're determined to watch it slowly take down butchers one at a time. The Tazakor can fill a similar-ish role with its chaining taser. It's accurate, high fire rate and status chance, and able to chain to 3 additional enemies within 4 meters of the last. The damage is abysmal however, with lower single target DPS than the Artax. The chain effect halves the damage with each chain, making the maximum total damage just 87.5% higher than affecting only the first target. In effect, it fills a role similar to the Hellstrom, with quicker application but limited multi-hit potential. The final Sentinel weapon of any note is the Volcax. This is a charge weapon, taking a moment to launch a fiery burst with perfect accuracy, a small AoE, and punch through. Unlike the beam weapons, it has no maximum range, making it the only noticeably damaging Sentinel weapon to be effective at Diriga's max range using calculated shot. Every other weapon either spreads out uselessly, doesn't fire at all, or carries such little damage it's insulting to equip it. Even then, the Volcax isn't winning awards. While its damage output is better than its long-range competition, its status output is near non-existent, and it is easily outdamaged by the beams. There aren't many circumstances where you would need to trade down the damage for range on a Sentinel like that. Separate to using these weapons, either for damage or status, some of them can access the utility buff in the Tenacious Bond mod. By reaching a 50% critical chance, the mod activates to give your other weapons a 1.2 additive bonus to your critical damage. With Outer Riven, this includes the laser rifles, Burst Laser Prisma and Prime, Volcax and Voltlock. With a Riven, this can also be extended to the Burst Laser, Death Machine Rifle Prime, Verglas Prime, and Moltron. Without a Riven, I recommend one of the laser rifles to maintain some amount of status output, or Volcax if you want the long range damage. With a Riven, Verglas Prime is the objective winner unless you wanted to spend less than 500 platinum. Turns out, the Riven mods for the most powerful Sentinel weapon, necessary to reach another useful breakpoint, gated behind layers of RNG, don't come cheap. But all the other weapons I've not talked about at length here, whether that's the Stinger, the Sweeper, the Volclock, the Cryotra, the Moltron or Deconstructor, the simple truth is they do not provide any notable value. If you really want to use a Shotgun Sentinel, or Glaive Sentinel, or launch ineffective snowballs, just be mindful that it's an entirely vibes-based choice, and not a practical one. Ultimately, without some kind of late game augment for the early game Sentinel weapons, most of them will remain niche, or simply outclassed compared to the top meta weaponry. For now, I hope this gives you everything you need to choose the Sentinel guns best for your use. And as always, shoot beams, crush dreams, and fight well, Tenno.